60% people are suffering, but maybe 40% companies, they do not suffer, but they would also like to avail all those benefits which are passed on to the other 60%. So in that race, the today's news by RBI that there will be more and more bad loans in the country. So we have to address all these issues so that the country's economy can survive and can be strengthened. As far as the rate of interest is concerned, I'm not here to advocate that the rate of interest should be reduced at par with America or at par with Europe or at par with Japan. I mean, the rate of interest today should be a fairly rate of interest is 6 to 7%. But the problem is there is a big dilemma. There is a big gap in between the lowest rate of interest enjoyer versus the highest rate. The people, those who are having AAA plus rating or AA rating, they enjoy a very low rate of 7.5% to 8%. Whereas the companies, those who are in B or BB or BBB, they are forced to pay somewhere about 10.5 to 11% and sometimes 12%. So this is a big anomaly. So that means we are trying to create more bad loans. So the country will have to come out with a very uniform policy that in a band of 0.5%, the rate of interest should be applicable to any industry, whatever the rating may be. When the rating is good or the banks are comfortable, then only they are giving the loans. Otherwise, they are not giving the loans to anybody. So when the loans are provided or extended to any company, that means that company is good and bank is confident. If bank is asking 2% more or higher interest, it seems that they have already taken the insurance against the default, which is likely to happen after 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years time. So I think there has to be eradication of this kind of anomaly from the banking system. Then the FTA, we many times we discuss about FTAs. The FTA should be revisited, and there should be a bilateral FTAs. It should never be a single or one-side FTAs, so that some countries pushing material to our country, we must push the material to their country also, and that should be on equal terms or a level playing terms. And then the next is how to reach to this 300 million ton. God has given us a lot of natural resources. We are the top 5 producer of the iron ore. We have 20 billion ton of iron ore available in the country. We have 350 billion ton of coal available in the country. Unfortunately, neither the iron ore nor the coal has been allocated or given by Government of India to the steel industry or the prospective steel industry, those who are likely to come or those who want to come. We have seen the cases many times in past. Many multinational companies, they tried to come in India, but finally they left the place either because of the land not available or the local NGOs, they don't allow them to work. So this is what has happened in past. There's no need to name all those companies, but all of us know heart to heart that what happened to them after 5-7 years of wasting their time. They're gone back to their countries. So we have to have very comprehensive policies as to how to bring the FDIs. Today we have 5 big business houses in the country. Those who produces steel, Steel Authority of India, JSW, Tata Steel, JSPL, and ArcelorMittal. So these are the 5 companies. They produce more than 3 million ton steel. I would say more than 5 million ton steel. The other, maybe another 10 companies, they produce only 1.5 million ton steel. So I think to reach to 300 million ton, we need at least 20 more companies to come in the country. Those who will produce about 5 to 7 million ton steel, and which it is very unlikely that all these existing 5 players can meet out the demand of the country to 300 million ton. If it is not 300 million ton, we go a little more conservative side. If it is 200 million ton, then still by after 2024, we'll be importing at least 80 million ton steel in the country. This 80 million ton steel bringing in the country is going to cost too much. That will be about $200 billion. So from where this $200 billion will come, this is the point, this is a major point to be pondered upon, that how to bring FDIs, number 2, how to attract the Indian investors to spend more and more. Indian investors means like Reliance, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, Reliance Indian Oil, Hindustan Petroleum, Bharat Petroleum, all these companies, L&T, they should put up a steel plants here if they feel that this steel is a business which can be fruitful and Government of India must facilitate them. Then the next is the rate of interest. The differential in between rate of interest from AAA plus company to a BBB minus company should not be more than 0.5%. Any loan provided by the bank to a customer, to a industry, that must be treated that the industry is good. No matter whether rating has gone to triple B minus or triple B plus or triple A plus, that is a situational analysis. Many a company, those who were triple A plus, they have gone bankrupt, and you all know. So this is what we have to see. This anomaly has to be finished from this country if we have to have a level playing field. Then the education of the people, bringing all the engineers on a particular platform. The major shift we have to do is the manpower. Today, whatever government is doing to feed the people free food, free electricity, free water. It's okay. We are not against it, but we must ensure that people, they do work. Otherwise, whatever 70 crores or people we have, those who can be gainfully employed by the industry, they will not be employed. They will be working in Manrega, or they will be working in the villages for some small jobs or as a farm workers. So I think 50% of the youth, at least 35 crore people, should be brought to the industry, and they should work for that. There should be a good labor policy in the country. There should be hire and fire policy in the country. The industrialists should be empowered to take decision whenever it is required. The Indian unions, they must support the major industries. Then only we can make the country self-reliant or Atmanirbhar. Unless we do this, unless we create the downstream industry, we'll be not in a position to reach to those levels. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for giving your inputs. Now we will quickly move on to our next speaker. We have Dr. Shubh Gautam, Chief Technical Architect, American Precoat, California. Viewers, I'll give you a little introduction of Dr. Shubh Gautam. Having worked for Goldman Sachs and other Fortune 50 companies before his home calling, he finally founded and established Three-Soul American Precoat Group in 1996. He is a B.Tech from IIT Kharagpur and an alumni of IIM Ahmedabad. He has been at the front end of innovation and scientific developments for more than 2 decades. In short span of 2 decades, American Precoat not only holds numerous intellectual property rights, but also takes up turnkey projects in the regulatory compliance domain. Three-Soul Research Foundation is regarded as one of the best labs for the scientific innovation and quality protocols, including reverse engineering and food contact measurements. Over to you, Dr. Shubh Gautam. I'm just unmuting the mic. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Metalogic, for organizing extremely emotional webinar, Vocal for Local. Usually, these kind of webinars generate so much passion that one tends to go overboard. I welcome all the participants, and especially extremely honored to be part of this panel in sharing what we feel is the level playing field today as far as Atmanirbharta is concerned. So let me open my statement by saying, is it about a level playing field, or is it all about getting manufacturing to India? Now, those are two different topics, and those two need different lenses to understand. If it's level playing field, then it applies to probably a whole host of other surmountable issues that plague the development of India. But if you're talking about bringing or generating a manufacturing revolution, then yes, it is an entirely different issue. Looking from a perspective of steel, I would limit my talk on bringing manufacturing to India, and I would go to the extent of saying we have no choice. When Amartya Sen got his Nobel Prize, and he was asked a question, "What do you fear as far as your home country is concerned?" He said, "Economics cannot prove that a knowledge revolution can sustain without an industrial revolution. An industrial revolution has to succeed a knowledge revolution." This he said a long time ago. We've seen India has been at the forefront of knowledge revolution. We saw information technology and enabled services bring us so much of delight, honor, pride, foreign exchange, employment, but manufacturing lacked. In fact, I was trying to look at one manufacturing Make in India program that came to India in the last 5 years, which was worth in weight in salt. I could not find one such example. I'm talking in general. So we have no choice. The largest democracy on this planet, the second largest contribution to population, the human mankind on this planet, the second largest producer of steel on this planet, the third largest economy on this planet, and we do not have meaningful manufacturing in this country. This is not sustainable. Manufacturing will come, has started to come. We see the green shoots. The question is, how do we accelerate and accentuate this by providing a level playing field? And this is what I mean. If you look at the Indian growth story, and if I look at 75 years, first 50 years we grew at 1.5% because we were oscillating between socialism and democracy. It was not democracy spanning overall. For the good and bad of whatever wisdom prevailed then. But of course, in the next 30 years, 20, 30 years, we grew at what we call a Hindu rate of growth, 3%. Now, I'm not saying that level playing field entails corruption. I mean, corruption is corruption. A good word for corruption is lobbying. The question is, in the next 10 years, we grew by 6 to 9%. Now, I would say a level of corruption in India, as is known globally, in 1980s was far less, far more perceptible than what it was in 2000. But the question is, in 1980s, we grew at 3%, and 2003, 4, 5, 6 onward, we grew at 6 to 7 and 9%. What are we trying to convey? That India incorporation grew only at night. When so corruption increased, the growth increased. Now, this is not how you create a level playing field. So India incorporation did not grow at night. Now the catch here is, we got our independence in 1947. South Korea got its independence in 1955, and so did Singapore. Today, countries like South Korea are 50 years ahead of us, and so is Singapore. The question is why? The question lies in the way they handle their manufacturing domain. If you would actually do a comparison of Southeast Asian economies versus India, there are 4 typical parameters that come to light. And first is, the SEA economies were very, very intensive on deployment on capital and labor. Capital in India was considered a taboo till mid-80s and 90s. Do not forget what China started in 1979 called liberalization. We started in 1991. So there was a head start of 11, 12 years. But do we now consider ourselves only 11 or 12 years behind China? Of course not. But what China did was, China cast its policies in cement, and we could not do that. China cast its interest rate. They cast the renminbi against the dollar in cement, and that could lay a roadmap to great diversity and prosperity as far as manufacturing was concerned. Now, I wish we could have done that. Similarly, Southeast Asian economies are fueled by federal dispensation and governments, whereas at the center of Indian growth story is a promoter. So how do you give a level playing field to a promoter? This is the difference between Indian manufacturing scenario and Southeast Asian economies. They were hinged more on export, and we are hinged more on domestic demand and consumption. They were investment heavy, and we are consumption heavy. Now, if these are the criteria on which we have to develop a level playing field, make no mistake, this level playing field is for domestic demand or consumption, or is it for exports? Now, these two are extremely different things. If you connect, and this is a very small exercise, if you connect on the map, political map of India from Kanpur to Chennai, if you draw a straight line, you put a ruler across, draw a line from Kanpur to Chennai, would you believe 65% of prosperity of this country lies on the west side of that line? How come there's a polarization and dichotomy? Where is that level playing field? So level playing field has got 3 or 4 legs. It's got 3 or 4 ecosystems. And unless we come to understand what it takes, it can't be only anti-China bashing. It can't be anti-import bashing. It cannot be government bashing alone. It has to encapsulate the entire chain of stakeholders going forward. And what is that for? Let me give you a quick and dirty example of cost of doing business.
Gautam sir, your voice is gone. Shubh Gautam sir, your video is also paused. Can anybody
we can
hear Dr.
we
Shubh
can
Gautam?
switch over to we can switch over to the next speaker, Monica, and
Yes,
then
sir.
when he rejoins, then we can again take his views.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Dr. Shubh Gautam, your video is paused and we can't hear you. So we
Please,
will take your points again. We are moving on to the next speaker now.
please make your
Right, sir. Right, sir. So, I'm sorry, viewers. Looks like Dr. Shubh Gautam's internet connection is little slow. So we will quickly move on to our next speaker. We have Mr. Sanjay Jayram. I'll give you a quick introduction of Mr. Sanjay Jayram. Mr. Sanjay Jayram is the Executive Vice President, Sales and Marketing at JSW Steel. He joined JSW Steel in 2006 with additional responsibility of overseeing the collaboration agreements with JFE Steel, Japan, and Service Center joint venture with Marubeni Itochu. Over to you, Sanjay Jayram, sir. I'm muting your mic. So please unmute your mic. Yeah.
Yes. Good afternoon, esteemed panelists, and thank you, Monica, for this webinar. I think it's a very, very interesting webinar, which is encompassing a lot of topics for discussion. And in fact, I was quite enamored by the comments which Mr. Sharma had made, and also some of the things that Dr. Shubh Gautam had just about enumerated. I would be covering a few points from each of these topics. Good. So I think it is common knowledge that life in the post-COVID area will not be the same. The effects of the pandemic are expected to have a lasting impact on every sphere of activity. And even as various nations are trying to revive their economies and trying to protect their livelihoods, this pandemic has disrupted global chains, reduced manufacturing and demand, and it is no secret that India has not been spared of this. And it has taken us more than 3 months for India and the rest of the world to get back to near normal. But I think the way is still far away. The Honorable Prime Minister, in a speech of 12th May, coined Atmanirbhar Bharat and defined the 5 pillars that would govern it. That is economy, infrastructure, system, demography, and demand. And the Make in India mission, which has been in force for quite some time now, will only make us more resilient and self-sustainable. And this particular mission gains paramount value, after this so-called attack of COVID, when most of the countries are introspecting internally as to what they can do with their own resources, with their own people, and with their own country. The disruption in the global supply chain and the imports of finished goods that were supporting manufacturers in India in a variety of end-use segments will also offer new end-use opportunities for creating facilities within India and reduce their dependence on goods from other countries. We are aware that the central government has announced huge money outlays for the infrastructure and construction space, and this will definitely boost the economy and the steel demand in a very big way. We're all aware, and we can see a lot of activity in railways, metros, roads, irrigation, power projects, and all this is only going to improve in a period of time. Most of these segments of the industry consume large quantums of steel, both flat and longs. And we're all aware that in every developed economy, or even in developing economies, more than 50% of the steel is consumed in the infra and the construction segments. The Indian steel industry has a capacity of 135 million tons, which we are all aware. Capacity creation, on one hand, is not very, very difficult if the raw material resources and if the money is available. But more important than all that is demand creation. I think the National Steel Charter, which talks about 260 million tons of steel by 2025, will not happen if the demand creation does not happen. And while India has phenomenal potential for increasing steel demand, because we are still way below the world per capita of 202 kg, we're only at 75. I think a lot of introspection has to be done. There has to be a consultative approach between specifiers, steel producers, consultants, end users within India to try and see how we can increase the demand. The measures, of course, there have been a lot of measures taken by the government to support the MSMEs, which is also likely to increase steel demand in a big way. There is a lot of latent demand in the rural and the semi-urban areas, and this offers tremendous potential for increase. There again, if you look at the per capita, it is as low as 20 kg. And with the pandemic hitting the world, you will see lifeline and you will see the new normal of a lot of people trying to work from home. So when you are allowed to work from home, you can work from anywhere. It is not necessary for you to be in a city. You can go to a big great city, you can go to a semi-urban area, or you can. So what will happen is you will see a lot of infrastructure movement from the urban to the semi-urban areas and from the semi-urban areas to the rural areas. So this opportunity will see a huge exodus of population moving here and there. And this will definitely create large capacity additions and large demand. See, today in India, the integrated steel plants, which have invested large sums of monies in the last decade and a half, have the capacity and the capability to produce all the products which the Indian consumer requires, barring a few products which are imported. But but of course, the quality order which was also which also came into place and which covers more than 57 products basically acts as a curb to bring in substandard imports, and that too at predatory prices. I think every country today is getting very protectionist. Every country wants to protect their own nation's interest. And while we are not against imports, we are saying that we will not allow, or we should not allow, substandard imports or imports coming in with prices which are much, much lower than Indian mills. Okay? And all this is going to, with this kind of measures, this is going to augur well for the Indian steel mills. And these Indian steel mills will have to introspect, develop more high quality grades to meet the demands of the end consumer. The move of the steel ministry to also provide a level playing field to all steel producers will also meet quality standards in a very big way. And with the BIS, you will see more and more the entire quality benchmarking going up. From a JSW standpoint, our capacity creation has always been, majority of the capacity creation has been during downtimes, because our promoter strongly feels that capacity will beget demand. He always believes that capacity will automatically get demand. But demand creation, all of us have to play a role. Every single Indian has to play a role. So today at JSW, we have more than 18.5 million tons of crude steel capacity. And within a short period of time, we should be 27 million. And our medium term goal plan is 40 million tons. And we wholeheartedly support the Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India mission. And we have created world class plants, processes, and products to support the domestic consumer as we contribute in our own sweet way to nation building. The wide product basket of JSW, coupled with the capacity additions that we have planned in almost all long and flat products, will surely meet all the customer expectations going forward. Just to give you a small citation, almost 40% of our entire product portfolio is what is called under the value added and special product category. And this value added products, especially de-risks us from the market vagaries and also downturns and upturns of the market. Our R&D departments, which have been set up with a great deal of care and being, they're all working very hard to develop the next generation steels. We are also one of the lead suppliers to the automotive. We produce high tensile steels and advanced high strength steels right up to 1000 MPa, and most of those steels are approved by auto majors here, while the usage is far and few now. But going forward, I think these are the steels, the new generation steels will have to, will be the order of the day. Today life cycle costs are coming into play. Today everything is getting lightweighted, everything is getting stronger. Safety regulations are going up, environmental regulations are getting tighter and tighter. So it is necessary for the Indian steel industry, and the Indian steel industry is capable of meeting the demands of world steel. India definitely, as we all aware, as Dr. Shubh Gautam also said, we are the second largest crude steel producer. And while I do tend to agree with him that for a level playing field, a lot of things have to be put in place. But the government is doing its bit. It is necessary that as Indians, all of us need to contribute in this nation building program. So my strong belief is we must make in India, use in India, and be proud Indians. The Indian steel story is yet not told in a very big way in the world. We are at number two position in the world, but I think it's going to be a big story going forward. So I thank Monica and all the participants for giving me a patient hearing, and I wish the conference all the very best. And thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you so much, Jayram sir. And you rightly said that as the population is moving and they have got a work from home opportunity, so obviously there are a lot of people who are moving to semi-urban and rural areas, and that is really giving an opportunity for the steel companies to start developing those areas and start investing in those areas. Dr. Shubh Gautam is back. So Dr. Shubh Gautam, if you could just conclude what you were talking to us, and then we will move on to our next panelist. So Dr. Shubh Gautam, please unmute your mic, and I request you to please conclude what you were saying.
Thank you, Monica. Unfortunately, I lost all of you. So I was at a point where I was saying that level playing field for manufacturing has 4 legs, and we touched upon policy, we touched upon why we haven't been able to do that so far, and we were at cost of utilities. Of course, we cannot have interest rates which are at par with North American rates. But tell me something, why shouldn't we have cost of electricity which is at par with North American rates? Why can't we have cost of gas which is at par with China? I mean, I've seen industrial complexes in China where steam, and I'm talking about an industrial complex on a size of 10 square kilometers, where steam is supplied through a pipeline to each and every industry. Now, that is a level playing field. If they produce a product and we produce a product here, how do we come to consensus? How do we come to that it's not a cash for clunker program that I'm asking the federal dispensation to come in. So let me highlight 3 examples here quick in the next 2-3 minutes. Dunlop wanted, and these are 3 case studies that were, 2 of them were published in Harvard Business Reviews. Dunlop wanted to set up a mega production facility in this part of the world. And they said, India has English-speaking labor. India has a great climate. India is a democracy. We love it. It's a great place. We can trade. And China doesn't have all of this. And I was shocked to find out that 18 months down the line, Dunlop set up that facility in China. Now, when we dug more, they said, look, we understand the food is better in India, but the point is productivity is more in China. I said, what do you mean by productivity? He said 20 people in China produce 2,000 pairs of shoes. 20 people in India would produce only 500 pairs of shoes. The question is, do we have a responsible education system going forward? We've got millions of engineering coming into the fray, but then what quality of engineers are we producing? And that's what I would say comes in an ecosystem of institutions. We have educational institutions, knowledge institutions, and we have policy-making institutions, which is a bureaucracy. Now, this is exactly where this funnel comes in. Institutions have done great in India and provided a great level playing field where the entry level was restricted. And this is exactly what institutions and bureaucracy and excellent educational institutions were. If the entry level was restricted, everything went well. Unfortunately, business is this way. Businesses, there is no entry level for business. There's no quality business coming in. Dunlop didn't do that. India used to be the largest exporter of coconut, which went on to make coconut oil. There's a huge plantation of coconut down south. There's no reason why we say that we cannot beat Malaysia or Singapore as far as coconut farming is concerned. But if you look at today, Malaysia won the race. They export more coconut because coconut is a labor-intensive job. You need a man to climb up a tree and actually chop coconuts. What Malaysia did was they had a lot of monkeys like we have. They trained a lot of monkeys. Those monkeys used to climb up the trees and actually chop coconuts. It's an industry in Malaysia chopping coconuts using monkeys. In India, we had an animal cruelty law. 35,455 archaic laws still rule this country, which were formulated by the British. Now, I understand we should not put in harm to a living being called a monkey, but then I believe a couple of people of jail because they were using monkeys to chop coconuts. What happened? Coconuts started being exported. Coconut prices came down. Coconut became nothing but a commodity. We lost out. Land allocation in China. Volkswagen went to China and said, we need 2,000 acres. They took, and this is the biopic of Volkswagen CEO. He said, they took me in a chopper. They took me to 3,500 feet and said, well, that is a piece of land that we are earmarking for you. Now at 3,500 feet, it's very difficult to say whether it's 2,000 acres, 1,000 acres, or 3,000 acres. He came down, when he was signing the contract, it said 20,000 acres. He said, excuse me, is there a problem in this contract? There's an extra zero there. He said, no, this is 20,000 acres. You wanted 2,000, we gave you 20,000 acres. Build roads, build educational institutions, build hospitals, build living quarters, then build your factory. That's a level playing field we are talking about. We are not talking about simply providing capacities and low capital. We are providing, in general, an ecosystem which can lead for manufacturing to come back to India. And this is where the entire stakeholder chain also has to understand. A great integrated steel plant has to lead this manufacturing revolution. It is a revolution. And at the head of this revolution is the promoter of the integrated steel plant. And let me quote the famous Augustine here. Revolution is a struggle not through the purity of spirit, but through the exercise of free will. If the promoter in this country does not feel free, if the promoter in this country does not feel secure, if the promoter in this country does not feel that he has to be part of the manufacturing revolution, I do not think so there'll be ever a level playing field. So this is how I rest my case, saying yes, all this mixed together, if we apply to steel industry, we can move from number 2 to number 2 still, but then take from where we are from 100 odd million tons to 300 odd million tons. Wishing all the best in the steel fraternity, a great level playing field, contribute, bureaucrats, politicians, federal dispensations, academics, media, institutions, promoters, everybody needs to chip in, and I'm sure we're going to be successful. Next time we have a webinar, I'm sure we're going to be at 200 million tons. Still vocal for local. Apply the 200 million tons also. Thank you, everybody, for giving me a patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shubh Gautam, for highlighting your points and giving such beautiful examples to really talk about how level playing field can be really happen. Okay, so now we will move on to our next panelist. We have Mr. S. Seetharaman. I'll introduce you to, I'll give a little introduction about Mr. Seetharaman. He's a founder of Sarvada Legal, a law firm that specializes in international trade, taxation, commercial laws, and regulatory laws. He is renowned international trade lawyer specializing in WTO laws, such as WTO dispute settlement, market access, trade remedies, such as anti-dumping duties, countervailing duties, and safeguard measures. He has also represented Government of India in several WTO disputes. He advises on international trade policy issues. He was also a special representative of the Government of India in the RCEP negotiation. I request Dr. Seetharaman to please unmute your mic. So over to you. Seetharaman sir, can you hear me? I think his internet is slow. It's been paused. We will move on to our next speaker. Meanwhile, Mr. Seetharaman ji will handle his internet. And Mr. Seetharaman ji, am I audible to you? Can you speak? I can see your mic turned on. Okay, so we will take up Mr. Seetharaman ji in a short while. Meanwhile, we will move on to our next speaker, Mr. Alok Sahay. Viewers, I'll give you a little introduction of Mr. Alok Sahay, Executive Director, Steel Authority of India Limited. He's an Executive Director Commercial. He has spent 36 years of varied experience in the steel industry. He has held position in exports, domestic marketing and operations across the country. His experience includes training on advanced logistics and marketing at the British Steel Corporation. As the Executive Director Commercial of SAIL, he has the defense and railway verticals, the market analyst group, special steel group, and the division for the trade and economic partnership apart from other responsibility. Over to you, Mr. Alok Sahay.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you for inviting us. This is such a interesting discussion which we are holding, and a great panelist which we had. I must admit that the way Dr. Shubh Gautam has come out with his point of view is very, very important, especially in a country like India, where we have to create more FDIs than more FTAs. It is most important. But anyway, coming to the topic which you have given, impact of international trade and trade deals on Indian steel. You know that we have most today more than
the next chance comes. Okay, no problem.
more than 60% of the imports which are coming to India are coming through the FTA routes. Today, some of the FTAs which we have signed over last 12 years, like Japan and Korea, there is only a worsening balance of trade with them. The way we signed the FTA with ASEAN was very, very smart in ensuring that wherever they have interest of the getting material from India, like semis and rails, such material were immediately on zero duty, and those material where they had no interest, they were put on the banned list of items. So contrary to that, we were very open to them. We had given almost all the lines open to them. Similarly, now we are hearing about European Union FTA. European Union has been talking about quality control order also, and India has been, they have been complaining number of times when we go for quality control order because they feel that they have better specification. But you'll be surprised that today 95% of tin-free import which comes from them is defective. 80% of tin plate which comes from European Union are defective. 59% of galvanized products which are imported from European Union are defective. So I don't think they can talk about the quality standards, and this is not the correct way to project our quality control order. So I think it is required that any FTAs which we enter with European Union, also we take care of our lessons which we have learned with ASEAN or with Japan and Korea, where our interests should also be taken care quite well. Similarly, like, you look at the country of origin, which plays a very important role in determining that FTA benefits are extended to an exporter. Country of origin, we need to have a good system of evaluation that country of origin is not utilized. Say today Vietnam is a major country where China also is exporting. It should not happen that Chinese exports are routed via Vietnam or such countries. So we have to have a system of checks and balances on country of origin certificate. Today, on the face value, we need not accept it. Similarly, the value addition norms, whether it should be direct method or indirect method, those things have to be determined quite well. Mr. Seetharaman will elaborate how these two systems are different and how it makes a lot of impact in later on determining the value addition which has been actually achieved while exporting to India by these FTA countries. If you really, it is very important that today when we allow FTAs, we also have level playing field in the sense that domestic steel industry, even Niti Aayog has analyzed that $80 to $100 of adverse cost is there on account of logistic infrastructure, power, some of the duty on the coal, clean energy cess, then that royalty on iron ore, finance costs, all these things together constitute almost $80 to $100. And it is, government has already been talking about to counter this border adjustment tax can give us an equal footing, which is important so that we are very much, we always welcome any kind of imports. because competition brings best out of us. But it should never be without a level playing field. We should not be on the adverse side. Similarly, there are inverted duty structure because of the FTA imports, which is bulk in nature. There are duties on coal, cess on coal, and that is what we talked about when we talked about the border adjustment tax. It is important that these are removed, these anomalies are removed. Then what we want is that the lesser duty rule. Today we have a duty structure where we can't even immediately countervail a subsidy given by an exporting country, or we are not able to exactly levy the full duty on the dumping margin. Now, these are some of the corrections which are required, because if we want that those who are exporting to India, they do not take advantage, the countries do not subsidize their exports. That is a fair deal we are asking. And in order to have a level playing field, these are important aspects for the international trade. China has no lesser duty rule, US doesn't have. So we need to remove these things. And over and above lesser duty rule, you will be surprised that even the injury calculation when we make, our cost of production is not taken in full. It is taken, it is normalized at the least of the cost. Last 3 years, there is a mechanism, which puts us in a huge disadvantage in terms of levying any kind of duty. Rather, I would say that government, the way steel industry has there are almost 1,200 small and medium industry in steel sector. It is not possible all of them to join hands together. It is good if government can take suo motu measures, and it is provided, in the as per the law, that government can initiate suo motu action. Then there are issues regarding in terms of surveillance, the checking of the quality compliance of the quality control order, so that the defective material do not come wherever we have got quality control order invoked. And also those who have those material which are covered by quality control order, every exporter procures BIS certificate from the IS certificate from BIS authorities. Then only they should be able to import, so that quality standards are well maintained like in India. And this is not only for exporters, it is valid for even domestic producers. Even in domestic area, it is similar manner, the quality control order is applicable. So there are no discrimination between India and the exporting countries. Sorry. So coming to some of the issues related to our exports, you know that today when we are exporting, we have higher logistic costs. Taking material to the port and the entire cost, our cost is quite high. Not only for steel, it is also for entire engineering goods, for all of them. And if we have to ensure that these are, like most of the railway freights are basically subsidizing the passenger fares. But at least in terms of export freight for the export purpose, there should be no subsidy element charged from the all the suppliers. We should not be charged any subsidy element. That should be knocked off from the railway freight, so that it is more, it is cheaper. So that is one of the things which we have been talking also, and I'm quite sure government is also live to these issues, and it is being discussed regularly. Similarly, if you look at some of the issues, like we have got now steel import monitoring system, which is a very big step taken by government. But that early warning system can work only when it is linked to, nobody is allowed to give false information. And that can happen only when they are linked to the bill of entry. So we have to ensure that SIMS is also linked to the bill of entry. Then coming to some of the other issues, one more issue I would like to mention, that today almost 9 million ton of imports of engineering goods are coming, which are steel intensive. Now, if we are wanting that India has to become, this shows that we have a huge opportunity, and what Dr. Shubh Gautam has spoken just before us, that indeed India has, this shows an opportunity for us, and this should be taken as a lead of how we develop manufacturing within country. If 9 million ton indirectly is coming to India as an export by way of steel engineering goods, we should look at this as an opportunity, not as a threat. And we should develop at par material within the country. And for that, policy interventions and all interventions, whatever is required, needs to be taken. With that, I will thank all of you and for giving a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alok sir. And now we have Mr. Seetharaman. Seetharaman sir, I have already given your introduction. I would like to request you to please unmute your mic and address the gathering.
Thank you, Monica. Dear Chairman, fellow members of the panel, and the large number of participants who have taken your valuable time to join this seminar. Good afternoon to all of you. The current slogan, vocal for local, reminds me of what I read a long time ago in the history of the Indian freedom struggle. We had a Swadeshi movement during our freedom struggle. The father of our nation, Gandhiji, described Swadeshi as a law of laws, which is ingrained in the basic nature of human beings. It is a universal law, like a nature's law. It needs no enacting by any parliament or an assembly. It is a self-acting one. When one neglects or disobeys this Swadeshi, due to ignorance or other reasons, it leads to disastrous consequences like the laws of nature. In the Swadeshi economic order, there will be healthy exchange of products and not cutthroat competition through the play of market forces. I would like to repeat this one sentence of Gandhiji. In the Swadeshi economic order, there will be healthy exchange of products and not cutthroat competition through the play of market forces. In such an economic system, there will be an organic relationship between production, distribution, and consumption. This is what Gandhiji envisaged in the Swadeshi movement. I think the principles and the ideas which Gandhiji said, say about 100 years back, are very much applicable to the current situation. What are we facing today? Every country is in a cutthroat competition with every other country. The leader of the competing countries globally is none other than our northern neighbor, China. China is able to make and sell every product at a far cheaper price compared to other countries. There may be some exceptions where some other countries like South Korea may be able to compete with China in a very limited number of products, especially steel or maybe chemicals. If India has to meet this competition, we have to take a number of steps. Is there a need to meet this competition? if that's the question asked, then I would think if India has to survive as a viable economic unit, we have to meet the competition from China, Korea, and a number of other low-cost producing countries. Why are they able to sell cheaper than us? The fellow panelists have stated a number of reasons, but I would like to touch upon one aspect of the causes as to why they are able to sell cheaper than us. I would like to comment only on the role of government in keeping the costs lower in those countries vis-a-vis India. Number one, in China, there are no embedded taxes in the price. They have a VAT which covers all products, and entire VAT on inputs is allowed as a set-off against output VAT. The entire value chain is covered. In India, we apply GST, which is similar, but it does not cover all the products. Petroleum and electricity are two major inputs on which India levies significant taxes, but no credit is available for those taxes. The taxes on petroleum and electricity add to the cost of production in India. This addition alone contributes to about 4 to 6%, depending upon the product. From industry to industry, it may vary. India should bring about a change and bring these products under GST. There are a number of suggestions, but I'm not going into the details of those suggestions on how this change can be brought about. But suffice it to say that this needs to be done. The second, there are a number of other taxes, such as Mandi tax, forest produce tax, or the clean energy cess, about which Mr. Alok Sahay mentioned in his speech. They are all outside the GST, and there is no set-off available for such taxes. These taxes again add to the cost of the products in India. Then, China continues to provide a number of subsidies to its producers, to its industry, to its exporters also. We did a study some time back, maybe about 4 years back or something like that. We found China was giving 12,000 crores to 15,000 crores every year for the 3 years for which we did the study to the steel industry alone. This 12,000 crores to 15,000 crores of subsidy was being given year after year by China to its steel industry. Look at India. There is not a single penny of subsidy to the steel industry. And yet we are supposed to compete and a level playing field. Forget about giving subsidies to the steel industry or any other industry in India. We are not asking for it. But when you go to government for giving protection in terms of the WTO provisions, which are globally accepted and implemented by all the member countries of WTO, even there, we do not have a level playing field. Say, for instance, in the case of anti-dumping or countervailing duties, India does not impose duties to the full extent of dumping or subsidization. Even if the government of China has given a subsidy of, say, 15% on the FOB value of exports, India will examine whether that entire 15% should be given or should be charged as a countervailing duty when the products are imported into India, or a duty lesser than that 15% is sufficient to remedy the injury caused by such imports. Okay, this is the first step of the analysis that India takes. Then what do? In doing this analysis of what should be the percentage which is less than 15% or which is less than the full dumping or full subsidy margin, that should be given as protection to the domestic industry in India. India has introduced a new set of rules over and above what is given in the WTO provisions or the WTO agreements. We call it as WTO plus provisions. These WTO plus provisions are more onerous and bring down significantly the level of protection that is given in India compared to what is permitted under the WTO laws and what is followed by several other countries. See, for instance, India has a huge imports from China in a large number of products. We impose anti-dumping duties against Chinese products, or we impose countervailing duties against Chinese products by applying this lesser duty rule. Whereas China, when they impose duties on our products or on any product that comes into China, they do not apply the lesser duty rule. See the level playing field where it is going. Similarly, USA and Canada, they also do not follow the lesser duty rule. Indian authorities used to...
Seetharaman sir, I request you to please conclude.
Sure, maybe 2-3 minutes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So European Union, they used to quote saying that we follow the EU system. EU is giving a lesser duty rule, so we also apply. EU was applying why? Because they have a large number of North European countries where nothing is produced, and they have some Southern European countries where the production is taking place. So there was a tug of war between these two groups of countries within EU, and so they introduced this lesser duty rule there as a standoff or as a compromise between the two sets of countries. But India doesn't have any such compulsions to follow the EU rules. But even EU has now changed the rules. They say where there is a distortion in raw material cost or where there is non-cooperation, we will not follow the lesser duty rule. That's what they have changed. And not only that, they say that where the reference price based duties are imposed, the actual cost of production of the EU Union industry may be taken into account in terms of what the future costs are going to be. Whereas in India, we are reducing our actual cost incurred by the domestic industry to arrive at the lesser duty rule, apply the lesser duty rule. But EU says in certain circumstances, the future cost, if any, which the union industry will incur, will be taken into account to arrive at this application of the lesser duty rule. So we have to see how the world is moving, how India is doing. Similarly, there are two issues more. One is the border adjustment tax, and another one is the RODTEP, or the refund of taxes on exported products. In both these cases, non-GST taxes, which are levied in India, are the subject. Border adjustment tax requires levy of non-GST taxes that are like product on the imported goods. We have been in the Indian market and also when they go and compete in the export markets. I request the government, or I urge the government to take these steps. And with this, I thank you all for your patient hearing and also for the opportunity given to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Seetharaman. The points are extremely important, and we have already started getting a lot of questions, which we will take up during Q&A. We will move on to our next speaker. We have Mr. Gajendra Panwar, who is the MD and CEO of Danilie India Limited. He has 32 years of experience in the field of steel plant technology with his background of metallurgy engineer from IIT Roorkee. He has worked all his career with companies like Danilie, SMS, Chorus, etc. Over to you, Gajendra, sir. I am unmuting your mic, sir. Sir, please unmute your mic. I think you have self-muted. Right, sir.
Thanks, Monica. I would like to thank Metalogic to give me this opportunity to speak along with this industry captains here. Good afternoon to all the delegates and to the other to all the panelists as well. From Danilie, from engineering, technology, manufacturing company, I would like to give you a perspective about this level playing field. I would like to start with saying a very clear statement that if we are comparing with China, then we are not playing on a level playing field. Rather, we are playing with the steel boots. And although, as Danilie or I can say that we are committed to the mission of our Honorable Prime Minister for Make in India or Atmanirbhar Abhiyan. We have set up manufacturing facilities in India. And I would like to give you a perspective how it feels in the present scenario from an engineering company or a technology company. My fellow panelists have very well articulated all the issues industry is facing with respect to cost of funds, availability of funds, the costs outside the factory premise, and cross-border, lack of cross-border protection. But the root cause of all these woes of our industry, in my opinion, comes from lack of demand. The demand growth can only be done by the government of India. That is if you see, China has grown from, in last 20 years, let's say 19 years, from 2000, China has grown by 850 million tons production capacity in 19 years, which would mean around 45 million tons per annum capacity year by year for last 19 years. Whereas in these 19 years, India has grown by 85 million tons per annum capacity, which is just 4.5 million tons per annum per year. So there is a huge difference, and this difference comes from the infrastructural spending which Chinese government has done in the country, which is also mentioned by Dr. Shubh Gautam, by Mr. Seetharaman, how the government is supporting the industry. And without this demand creation, I think we will continue to face these issues. If we need to go to 300 million ton capacity in next 10 years, then we are talking of adding almost like 15 to 18 million tons per annum capacity for next 10 years. That kind of demand will change the scenario. That would be excellent to do that. But who will spend that money? That I think private players or the foreign investors are not going to do that. There has to be a demand creation, and then automatically funds will flow and the investments will flow. Coming to the status of the engineering companies, there is an acute shortage of engineering companies. When China laid down their growth plans for steel industry, they established number of engineering companies. They called them design houses. these design houses, they did all sorts of reverse engineering, IP infringement, trials and errors, and their own indigenous developments. And today, they are well equipped to engineer the whole plant. In India, there are not many engineering companies. The well-established engineering companies like Macon and MN Dastur, even they are not in pink of health. So what about the private professionals who have set up engineering companies? They are not getting work. So how can they sustain and how can they flourish in this environment? Danilie has set up an engineering setup in Kolkata, in Chennai, and we are a global company, so we have the opportunity to put up our engineering people to work on global projects. But that opportunity is not available to other engineering companies, so they are facing crisis. Coming to the manufacturing setup, as Dr. Shubh Gautam very clearly said, that we are far, far away from the real manufacturing capacity we need. And again, what I am seeing here after setting up the manufacturing facility in India for building steel plant equipment, Danilie has a concept that we build the workshop wherever in the world. It has to have same quality standard, it has to have same working standard and same costing standard. So wherever there is a lack of work or the overload of work, the work can be shifted, and that gives us opportunity to develop our team and the engineering and the infrastructure of same quality as other places. But if I look at other manufacturing companies in the country over last 5-6 years, I am seeing that one after the other, the companies are losing business. They are, I would say, getting into more and more difficult situation. There were so many manufacturing fabrication shops in Bhilai. There are hardly any healthy companies anymore. So this is another setback for the industry. As regards there is another sector, which is the construction companies, the companies which build the do the erection, build the civil work, structural work. There also, what I have seen in last 5 to 10 years, the many construction companies also went into NCLT. If other than 1 or 2 mega size construction companies, there are hardly any left who can take up the construction if there is another phase of expansion. So this is a very difficult situation. As regards OEMs setting up shops in India, I can tell you that Danilie has set up, spent hundreds of millions of euro in India, and we are, as a statistics, brief statistics, I can tell you that during the expansion projects of 2004 to 2010, the imported component of a project was of the order of 40% plus. And then we come to the phase 2010 to 2015, the imported portion was ranging around 25%. Today, we are equipped to do almost 85% of our plant and equipment, even including the civil structure. 85% of work can be done locally, and today maybe 15% is imported component. And if there is another phase of expansion over next 7 to 8 years, I think we will be well equipped to do almost complete plant and manufacturing in the country. So with this kind of setup, we are competing against Chinese companies who are bringing almost, lock, stock, barrel plant and equipment in the country from their own manufacturing base. And as Mr. Seetharaman said, there is much more than 15% advantage or disadvantage to us, and we have to compete with them in India for Indian steel plants or Indian projects sitting in India, where we can do the complete projects from Indian base. So with this, I can say as a concluding remark that on a positive note, that today we may be not having sufficient business from the country. We are doing our all our facilities are fully engaged for export jobs. Most of the exports are happening to US, where there is a still booming market. And what we had situation 20 years back, lack of projects was the situation, but that time there is a big difference. Now we have the knowledge. The steel companies have the latest plants. So Indian steel companies are now competing globally and are even creating records from these most modern steel plants. And similarly, the OEMs are also having very good base with knowledge, with engineering setup, with the engineers who are commissioning global projects, and the projects and the equipment can be manufactured completely in India. So with that, I would like to thank you, all the fellow panelists, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Gajendra sir. Now we will move on to our last speaker, who is on audio with us, Mr. ACR Das. Das sir, I request you to please unmute your mic. I'll give a very quick introduction of Mr. ACR Das. Mr. ACR Das is a metallurgical engineer having a 40 years experience in iron and steel sector after working for a few years in private sector and public sector, SAIL, RSP, and also Bureau of Indian Standard. He joined Ministry of Steel and spent about 35 years there and retired from the post of industrial advisor. He has a long experience in the area related to planning and development, energy and environment management, and standards and quality control in respect to iron and steel sector. ACR sir, I would request you to speak only for 5 minutes, and then we will begin the Q&A, because we are getting a lot of question and answer, and we may have to extend the webinar limit to 20 minutes more. So instead of finishing at 3:30, we will finish at 3:50. So over to you.
Oh, thank you, Monica. Of course, let me first of all thank you for inviting me to this webinar. And being the last speaker, of course, I will speak something which some of which has already been talked. But of course, 5 minutes time is too less. Anyway, I'll try to cover that. So I think let me start by saying that what the Honorable Prime Minister has done, he has announced a lot of policy initiatives, whether it is Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Vocal for Local, which is the talk of the day. And today we are talking about that, to strengthen the manufacturing base of India. Before this, the previous government has also done and taken several initiatives. But what is the real position on ground? Are we really Atmanirbhar, or are we really self-reliant? Probably no. On steel, we are largely dependent on imported steel today. Of all types of steel which are produced here, and of course import takes place on many other considerations, I think, which the esteemed panelists might be knowing. Now, there is large scale import. Even if you see the last year figure, the import was of the order of 7 to 8 million ton. But apart from the import of prime materials, there had been, and in fact there has been, large scale import of seconds and defective product, which is a really major concern for this country and for the steel industry. In fact, this was one of the main reasons for introducing the concept of quality control order. Sometime back in early 20s, when we thought that we cannot stop the imports or ban the imports, or you cannot increase the customs duty beyond the WTO bound rate, we introduced the quality control order to basically to stop the import of seconds and defective of products like CRGO, where the proportion of seconds and defective was as high as 60 to 70%. Even today, if you see products like tin plate, the import, just now Mr. Alok Sahay has mentioned, is very high. Similarly for GPGC seats. So under this background, the quality control order was, found to be in respite, and we issued the quality control order when I was in the Ministry of Steel. And of course, over the time, many more products have been added, and today 113 products have been included under the scheme 1 of the quality control order. Means they have to bear the BIS mark. In addition, there are 7 products which are basically engineering products, which have also been brought under the purview of the quality control, though indirectly. Now, the underlying fact I think we all know about the quality control order is that to make available quality products to the customers and to prevent unfair trade practices. Now, besides this, see, it also empowers the customers or the consumers. But again, the question arises whether the quality control order has served its purpose. Is there really a level playing field in the country, within the country, or between imports and our domestic production? I will say probably yes, to a large extent. But yes, there are a lot of lacunas even today. So let me elaborate some of them. See, one of them is, equivalent grades or large-scale import of equivalent grades of steel. See, the problem is the Indian standard. We have certain grades which specify the physical, chemical, metallurgical properties. And the quality control order just mandate that this standard or that standard is mandated, means the product has to conform to that and the product has to mark by BIS. But the products which are outside the quality, outside the Indian standard, legally speaking, they cannot be brought under the quality control order. And of course, as of date, no. But if you want to amend the act, or if you want to do something else, probably this can be brought. And one of the very interesting thing, and a lot of people talk about that, why not as per the ITCHS Act, ITCHS codes? See, we have included the ITCHS codes in the quality control order, but these are basically for information. They're not the Bible. The Bible remains the Indian standard. If you want to include the ITCHS codes, probably that will stop all types of nuisances or the imports which is taking place. But as per the existing BIS Act, this cannot be done, because BIS Act only allows mandating the Indian standards or the products as per the Indian standard. So, but I was just thinking whether something can be done in terms of essential requirements and combined with the Indian standard. This is a matter to be looked into by BIS and the Ministry of Steel. And one more issue, when the quality control order was issued, we noted that most of the Indian standards were lagging behind the present day's development or present use in the steel sector or the user sector. So in fact, just after the quality control order, most of the standards were amended, revised, and today I can say that most of them includes most of the grades of that particular use. But I can say that this is not, there is no full stop at the moment. We have to go for revision, amendment of these standards to cover all the grades, all the types which are left out because of technical limitations. And in fact, when I was in BIS or I was in the technical committee, I have been telling to BIS technical people or the technical committee people that please try to have the standard in such a manner that the grades are not left outside. Probably this has to go a long way, and we have to work out in consultation with BIS. Another problem is that, enforcement authority. See, as per the Act or as per the BIS, our quality control order, the BIS is the certification and enforcement authority. So far as imports are concerned, BIS does only the certification and not the surveillance part or the enforcement part. This is done really by the customs. But customs have their own bottlenecks in terms of technical capability or interpretation of the standards And what happens that many a time the products which are really covered in the standards are declared to be not covered. And similarly for import of seconds and defects, it takes place in the name of scrap. So there are many more lacunas like this. And for domestic product, BIS is supposed to do the job of surveillance monitoring, but somehow this is not happening, and really position is not at all satisfactory. And I can tell you, in the secondary sector, there are more than 2,500 units, and most of the units produce 2 to 3 products. That means the number of licenses should be double or triple, but actually the number of licenses is much less. What does it indicate? This indicates that the products are not certified as per the BIS standard, in spite of the fact that there is a quality control order. So while the integrated steel plants by and large produce the quality products, the secondary sectors do not. In fact, earlier, apart from the BIS, there are some other agencies like District Industry Center, State Commissionerate, or State Secretaries for Industries. But let me tell you, even then, the system was not foolproof. There were problems what we are facing today. So what is needed, in my opinion, is that BIS or the Ministry of Steel has to strengthen the monitoring, surveillance, and enforcement mechanism through the BIS system or engaging third-party agencies. I think this is the need of the hour. See, another, just the last point, Monica, this is, there has been always a comment from the secondary steel producers about the problems being faced by them to produce quality steel because of particularly in the induction furnace. And because of that, the rolling mills also cannot produce quality products. So I think we introduced a quality control in 2012, and it is more than eight years. I think the government should not allow it indefinitely. So in fact, there are ways and means to produce quality steel, even in the induction furnaces, by having a judicious mix of inputs, or by adopting secondary refining, or by using neutral refractories, or by phasing out coal DRI-based induction furnace route altogether and going for an alternative technology. In fact, Danilie have developed some micro and midi and some nano mills. Probably secondary sector has to look into this. So what I want to point out is that the future mantra of whether it is primary sector or it is secondary sector, it has to be the quality. So just I want to conclude by saying that there are lacunas and deficiencies in the present system of the quality control or the standardization, and this has to be addressed by enforcement authority, that is Bureau of Indian Standard, or by the regulator, that is Ministry of Steel, to bring in really a level playing field for all producers in the country. This is all what I want to say. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asia Das sir, and thank you for pointing the quality related issues. Viewers, I would like to inform you that we have taken interview of Mr. Asia Das about a year back, and he has very briefly pointed out all the nitty-gritties of QCO. You can always visit to our YouTube channel and watch his interview. Alok sir, I want to ask you one thing before we begin the Q&A. The summarization of the session, can we do at the end? Because we have received a lot of questions and we are running out of time. So can we do a summarization, in the end itself? So just I'm unmuting you, and I request all the speakers to turn on their videos also. Yeah.
I think at the end only we can summarize. Although
Okay.
our panelists have been so clear, not much summary is required. Each word was golden words, I would put it like this. So, but anyway, we can.
Because a lot of people are asking questions from all of you. I'll take up one by one, as many as we can. So, first question I'm taking of Mr. Vidyadhar Hatpaki. He represents BMM Ispat. His question is, due to standoff between India and China, how India is going to manage iron making equipments, which is dominated by Chinese? Anybody can answer.
If I may.
Yes,
Yes,
certainly.
better.
Please.
Yes, you please reply.
Okay, see, as Danilie, we have built many blast furnaces in the country of various size. The smallest being 1600, but if BMM Ispat is talking about 550 meter cube also, it can be built by Danilie in India, and I must say almost like 90% of the supplies will be local, except for few items like graphite or carbon, which is not available in the country, it would be imported. As regards the copper elements, also we are working on developing in India for future. So I think it's the right time to not go for such equipment which will not give the right life cycle cost.
Right. Now we have question from Mr. Deepak Bhatnagar from Pellet Association. He's asking, level playing field is needed in availability and prices of minerals like iron ore. There is no regulation at all. Will the National Mineral Index help in price regulation? Who would like to answer this?
Alok Sahay.
Alok sir, you like to answer?
I think it's a question which is directed to government. We are not competent to answer exactly because only a government official can answer this.
Okay. Sir, V.R. Sharma, sir, you like to comment on this regarding iron ore pricing?
You see, the iron ore, we have a lot of iron ore in the country. We have 20 billion ton, and now most of the major players, they have their own iron ore. And earlier, Tata Steel and Steel Authority of India, they were having the iron ore since beginning. And in the recent auctions, major steel mills, they have already secured the iron ore. Now the question is, rightly said by Mr. Alok Sahay, it depends upon NMDC and OMC how to decide the prices, because these are the government companies. They can definitely decide the price in the interest of nation. And already, if you see the prices, if we leave the freight apart, then the prices ex mines are pretty competitive as of now. But the problem in India is because of land route or the Indian railway freight from one location to another location, the freight cost is ranging from 2,500 rupees to 3,000 rupees, especially when the metal goes to the down south or to the western India. So that's the reason that people are interested in putting up the plants in Odisha, Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, and this Madhya Pradesh. So, but I do not feel that there'll be any regulation like that. But yes, availability is not an issue as of now. And iron ore
Right,
in
sir.
India is much cheaper than the international prices.
That's right. And I'd like to inform Deepak Bhatnagar, sir, that we will take up a special webinar on iron ore, and we will talk in detail with regards to pellets and iron ore. We have a next question from Mr. Piyush Singh. He represents Maruti Suzuki. His question is related to automobile. What is the short-term, medium-term action plan of Indian steel mills to cater the automobile industry high-end grade requirements in galvanized products with the required quality parameters?
Mr. Sanjay is the right person to reply.
Sanjay, sir.
Yeah. So I think, like I mentioned in my speech earlier, Indian steel mills over a period of time have developed capabilities both in the cold rolled, hot rolled, and the galvanized band. In very high tensile mechanical properties to meet the exacting demands of the automotive. Now, speaking specifically about JSW, As far as cold rolled band is concerned, we can produce steels right up to 980 MPa in the interstitial free and the non-interstitial free space. As far as galvannealed is concerned, we have one of the largest galvannealed plants in the country, and we can produce MPAs right up to 590. And these steels are still far and few being used in the country. But going forward, there are a lot of plans to take, this development to the next level, and our new plants and all the capacity additions on the downstream front that we will be doing will definitely take into consideration steels which will require MPAs of 1000 and even steels such as strip and hot forming steels. So we are willing to discuss, and of course, Maruti is one of our very, very valued customer. And some of the high tensile steels that JSW is producing is already approved by Maruti. And we will continue the dialogue. And if there are any new generation steels, we would be most willing to partner with you and learn from you and take the whole thing forward.
Yeah,
Right,
just to
sir.
add, just to add, Sanjay, on this thing. One is the high tensile strength. The other is, even the medium strength like material like the SAPS 340, SAPS 410, SAPS 450. Those were developed way back 10, 15 years
Way
back,
back. Absolutely.
by the Indian industry. And, the Indian industry had already qualified in terms of roughness value, whether it's RA, RMAX, RZ, whatever. And the DP test, etc., everything was done very well. Even the critical material like side body, outer, everything, those are already developed in the country about 15, 20 years back. So I think the Indian automobile industry must rely upon the domestic suppliers and should buy from domestic steel manufacturers. And that would be a great help, and that would be a win-win situation for both of them.
No, but
Right,
I would
sir.
definitely
So
like.
we
I
have
would definitely.
Monica,
Monica, just 1 minute, just 1 point here. I would definitely like to place on record that there has been a lot of initiative shown by the automotive companies also in the last 5 to 10 years to develop all these high-end steels in India, because there used to be a time when all the body panel steels used to be imported. But today, with the help of engagement and a collaborative approach, the auto majors and the steel industry has worked together to develop all these steels going forward. So, what Sharmaji is also saying, especially SAPH 440, 590, all these things have been developed quite some time ago. But even the new age steels, the advanced high strength steels, the trip steels and the trip steels, all these things are definitely on the anvil, and Indian steel mills are working towards developing all of them.
Yeah, Monica, I
Bhaskar,
just
you
want
have
to
a
submit.
point to make? Yeah.
Yeah. I see, as Mr. Jayram has just mentioned, before the quality control order was issued, I mean, see, the number of or the scale of import of automotive steel was very high. And after the quality control order has been issued, there has been close collaboration between the producers of steel and the user, that particularly the automotive sector. So probably because of this, I mean, there is some relief that domestic producers are able to supply the automotive steel quality steels to the this sector. And even one more great, I think Mr. Gautam is there. See, one of the product which automotive sector use is the electro-galvanized steel. Earlier, we had no capacity at all, but now we have capacity. In Gautamji's plant in somewhere in Gujarat, they are producing about 30,000 tons of that product. So probably most of the products, which are the bulk consumption of the sector, we are producing. Maybe there are some niche product which are not able to produce, and as Mr. Jayram has mentioned, we are going to produce in the near future.
Dr. Shubh, Gautam, you like to add some point here? So you need to unmute your mic. Yourself muted.
2 things here, quick and dirty 2 points here. Going forward, if we need to rejuvenate automotive industry, it will not come by way of subsidies and taxes anymore. COVID-19 has completely upset the balance sheet of every government on this planet. What I can see forward is even a scrappage policy, which was in the making for a while, will find its pros and cons for something like a cash flow clunker program. Now, when you talk about good quality, you're talking about galvanized steel for automotive operations. Now that galvanized steel needs to be well labeled, has certain properties, which is why electro-galvanized steel comes into play. So American Precoat was honored to be given a chance by India to put up India's first electro-galvanized steel making facility in Valsad. We have a capacity of 0.27 million tons per annum, and the plant is operational and commercially supplying electro-galvanized steel today. So I would say a cash for clunker program that North America set up would be ideal to take the order demand, and that is how the demand chakra operates. So if order demand is there, products are there, there's a QCO there, I mean, everything falls into place.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question from Mr. Suresh Katoi from MinMed Consultants. He's asking, when do you feel India can reach the level playing field? This question is for Dr. Gautam.
So, okay, so let me put here, which I didn't say in my pitch. What is a demand chakra? As a lot of panelists said, starting with Sharma ji, and Sanjay was extremely vocal on that. Apart from local, he was vocal on demand, which I like, which is the essence. So what is demand chakra? Say you are prosperous, you are at 500 million tons. What does it mean? And let's draw some flesh on the bone. It means what? Which means you are generating enough value for your customers. If you are generating enough value for your customers, which means your customer is coming back to you. That's the value end of demand chakra. You are creating prosperity for your employees, which means if your employees are prosperous, and if each employee in this country is prosperous, they will buy more. You're creating more money in their pocket to buy more products, which give them more value because they are also customers. You are generating fair profits for your promoters and owners, which means if they get fair share of profits and they have free will, they will invest that money back into the system, and that creates a cyclical change for demand. And last but not the least, you are socially enriching the communities and taking pride in what you make. This is exactly the model that Japan followed. They said, hell, we want to export. What do? Overnight, the yen became 135 to dollar. It was overnight, 135. Came South Koreans. They said, wow, what did Japanese do? Oh, they made 135 to a dollar. We'll make what? 1350. So Korean won is 1350 to a dollar. They became export oriented. So demand chakra is fairly logical. It's easy to say that the government will do, government should do, government is for us, by us, for the people. Why should they not do? Easier said than done. Our bit part is have this demand chakra ready, create value for customers, prosperity for employees, fair profit for owners, and so on, social enrichment for communities. You will see half of the battle won. That's my take on this.
Thank you, Dr. Shubh Gautam. We have a question from Mr. B. Sahu. He's from NMDC Limited. His question is for Sanjay sir. He's asking, what is the future plan of JSW for sourcing iron ore in order to fulfill the ambitious plan?
Yeah, Mr. Sahu, I think it's a Mr. Sahu, I think it's a very, very. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this particular question, there's a lot of connotations, but let me just briefly tell you what our plans are. Our teams are engaged with your group, and we can definitely discuss the finer aspects. See, first and foremost, what we would like to state is that our existing arrangements in terms of iron ore sourcing will definitely continue. And whatever we are talking about for future expansions, we definitely want to operationalize and capitalize and build to full capacity some of the captive mines that we have got over a period of time. You're also aware that we have got into an MOU with the Orissa Mining Corporation for a long-term raw material security, and that is also something which we believe over a period of time will help us de-risk this particular area. And the other thing, of course, is we'll definitely continue to participate on government auctions, specifically for iron ore and coal, and keep the existing arrangements going. So for all the future expansions, we will be looking at new arrangements. Otherwise, our existing arrangements will definitely continue. But by and by, our endeavor would be to try and become, close to at least 50% captive, in terms of iron ore sourcing. So that's the plan. But
Yes,
we can discuss the
mines.
specific between our teams here.
Yeah, and you have got 6 points also.
No, that's okay, but that's not all because our appetite for iron ore is very, very huge.
Okay.
Thank you for the
We
question.
will move on to the next question. This question is for Mr. Seetharaman. It's been asked by Mr. Ravindra Brand from Indian Steel Association. He's asking, why is preventing government to remove lesser duty rule in spite of honorable CM having agreed on this in public forum?
Yes.
So,
There is a
yeah.
lot of, I think, cross currents within the government. I mean, when I say cross current, it is cross opinions or differences of opinion between the Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Finance. While Commerce Ministry has stated that there is a need to remove the lesser duty rule, Finance Ministry thinks that it is not the appropriate time, and the dialogue is going on between the two ministries. And I hope that they settle their differences in a short period of time and come out with a notification removing the duty.
Now, we have got 2-3 questions. You is and RTT, how helpful would they be? What problems the government facing in implementing them?
Monica, we
This
couldn't hear
question
you.
is from my side. The border adjustment tax and RODTEP, how helpful would they be for India? And what problem is the government facing in implementing them?
Oh, yes. Border adjustment tax is aimed at giving you a level playing field within the Indian market. When you produce and sell in the Indian market and the imported goods come and compete with you, on your product you have to pay a tax, and on the imported products those taxes are not levied. That's a difference in the level playing field, and therefore it will really help the Indian industry. It is not sufficient to say that those taxes are always normally given as a set-off or input credit, so it is not really, doesn't matter. No, the border adjustment tax that we have been talking about now are those taxes for which there are no credits available. So your products suffer those taxes, whereas the imported products do not suffer those taxes, and therefore the level playing field is distorted. You have to introduce them. The same logic goes on export of the goods under the RODTEP for refund of the taxes on exported products. But the major problem in these two are how to determine the exact amount of taxes that have been paid by the company on that particular product, or what is the tax incidence on a product, whether it is domestically produced for domestic sale or whether it is for export. The tax incidence calculation, for instance, for petroleum products, if somebody uses diesel or something like that, or any other petroleum products on which petroleum duties are there, it has become very difficult to calculate because the chain is too long. It is not a direct raw material, and so it becomes a problem. So one suggestion could be that GST, the petroleum products are also treated on par with GST, brought under that, but maybe without a immediate set off on a 100% neutralization basis. Maybe what they can do is they can follow what China is doing for export products. The VAT is 17% on most products in China. When the product is exported, they give a refund of say 13% on the FOB value. But they don't calculate this 13%, and then give you. What they do is 4% of the FOB value will not be given to you as a set-off. So you have an input tax credit, a basket of say $100 million. 4% of your FOB value will be removed from there as non-creditable VAT, and the balance is set off against all your output tax credit. So similar system can be introduced in India for petroleum taxes. You bring them under GST, but say, I will neutralize it 100% in the say next 10 years. So in the first year, I'm going to allow only 10%. So 90% of the taxes will be not available as a set-off. So next year, 80%. Something like that, you can do it for 10 years and bring it down, and it can be made, over a period of time, you can get 100% set-off for each of these taxes. But these are, suggestions which are there, but nothing has been done by the government so far because of the fiscal problems this government is facing.
So we will take last question, and then I would request Alok Sahay sir to conclude the session. This question is from Mr. Nishant Mittal. He represents Maruti Suzuki. Okay, we have many people who have participated from Maruti Suzuki. His question is, what's the plan of Indian steel sector to develop ultra tensile galvanized steel in India? Sanjay sir, you're there? Maybe anyone can take this question. Sir.
Hello. Yeah. No, I think
yes,
I think the question is. I think the question. Yeah. No, I think the question is similar to what was asked earlier. I think I mentioned that in the galvanized band, our existing capabilities is up to 590, and even this is used in very, very small proportions. And we are developing steels which can. We also taken trials which can do even a higher tensile. And going forward in all the downstream expansions that we have planned, depending on the kind of automotive requirements that may come up, we will definitely include the steels which are, either not available here or being imported. But in a hot rolled and the cold rolled band, we can also go up to we are already up to 980 MPa, and the galvanized band, especially in GA and GI for outer body panels, and especially for crash members, we can do 590 and above. So we can discuss, between our teams, and if there are any specific requirements, take it forward. Nishant, of course, is part of the sourcing team who is very well known to all of us. Like I said, Maruti is a very important customer to us, and we'll definitely do what they want us to do.
Right, sir. So now I request Alok.
Yeah, so just to add one more point here, because we have to find a right balance in between value engineering versus value addition, because many times it is felt that if the thickness is to be reduced, then we should increase the YS to TS ratio, but that is not always correct, because you have to maintain the weight of the vehicle, and you have to see the drawability in the press shop. And there are some critical shapes nowadays coming in the automobiles, where you may not need a very ultra high strength steel because the thinning process is too much. So when we put in the press shop, so thinning takes place to the tune of about 0.05 to 0.06 millimeter, which is too high, and the cracking behavior that starts. So we have to see that what exactly is needed by an automobile company. And the other point here is, except for the export orders, the country has not yet come with the regulation that the automobile people will have to use the galvanized steel or the coated steel. Still people are using the plain cold rolled material, maybe IF steel, and so the durability is better. And with the vehicle policy coming in the country, 10 years you have to scrap a vehicle, or maybe 12 years. I think there is no need to put a galvanized product in cars, because that will bring additional cost to the people. Because if the all vehicles are to be scrapped in 10 years or 12 years, then people need car which can suffice the requirement for 10, 12 years, and that's all. So this was my view.
Thank you so much, V.R. Sharma, sir. Alok Sahay, sir.
Yeah.
I request you to please provide concluding remarks.
Okay, thank you, Monica, and thank you all the panelists. I think it has been a wonderful journey of 2 hours rather now. We had very good discussion. As an opening remark, Mr. V.R. Sharma talked about that we are subject to the global pressures. Not everything can be found within the country, so we cannot close our borders. We have to remain open. and remain competitive. He also talked about parity among different kind of borrowers, so that interest rates are not kept different for different kind of ratings. This only creates more problem. It should be a small difference which should be there. It can't be 7.5% versus 10 to 12%. He also talked about huge availability of raw metal. India is gifted with iron ore and coal, and it should be made available to everyone so that India can expand to 300 million ton. Then there is a need for demand. There is a need for education of people. So and there is a need that people are working instead of only getting money through Manrega. He pointed about that. Then Mr. Shubh Gautam talked about the level playing field and whether we should be talking about generating manufacturing or level playing field, whether it should be domestic or whether it should be export oriented. And he made a very good comparison with Singapore. He talked about Southeast Asian economies, how they have grown over a period of time. And also the way China, where was China and where was India and where it has gone now. And the industrial parks in China, the way Chinese government organizes everything, the way proactive manner the entire government is working to bring in the manufacturing capability in China. So he talked about that. And then Mr. Sanjay Jayram talked about how the COVID has also created a huge opportunity for the country, where work from home also created an opportunity in the sense that people may move from urban to semi-urban to rural areas, and that he sees as a demand booster. Plus, so many government initiatives, especially Prime Minister's, 5 pillars of Atmanirbhar Bharat, what he has announced. He sees that steel demand is bound to grow with that. Then Mr. Seetharaman gave a very clear picture of how India is lagging behind in terms of some of the WTO plus guidelines which we have, like the lesser duty rule, which puts us at a disadvantage. China has been giving subsidy of almost 12,000 to 15,000 crore annually to steel industry, and we have not been able to countervail them. So we need to have a transparent. A very good question also came from Mr. Bhan. When will lesser duty rule go? And I think Mr. Seetharaman, in the know-how of things, he was rightly informing that probably some of the intergovernment departments issues, once they get resolved, it will come. Also, what Mr. Seetharaman talked about, all taxes should be encompassing, in the GST system, and how roadmap will be calculated on all those issues. He clarified during the question hour session also. And Mr. Gajendra Pawar, he talked about his how in India we have become more and more self-reliant. However, even the big companies like Macon and they are not having enough work. How will in India more and more engineering companies come? And also construction companies are also vanishing, like he gave example of Bhilai and local areas. So, and he also talked about 95% of the work can be done locally by Danilie, which is a big announcement. That means we are ready with we are not only talking of vocal for local, but it can be practiced if there are enough opportunities which are created for India. And he's talking about competing with Chinese design houses, and he can bring almost entire project he can do in-house. Mr. ACR Das very nicely, talked about how Indian standards were lagging behind, how India has come out with the latest standards, what is the importance of quality control order, how it will strengthen the entire quality standards for the consumers. It is for the benefit of consumers that it is required. Then there were some very good question answer session, I must say, and especially we are thankful to Maruti for having come to this, join the session, and they took very good participation, and that shows the interest in the local steel industry, that their commitment it shows, and they wanted to understand how our steel industry is wanting to grow, and the partnership which Mr. Sanjay Jayram talked about, the partnership and the kind of support these auto companies are extending to Indian steel industry is a great thing. And we already have enough, like up to in the galvanized sector, we have 590 MPa plus strength of steel. And the hot roll and cold roll also, we have got 880 MPa plus steel, which is a very good and very good news. New generation steels are under research R&D in by the steel companies, which is a good news for all of them. There were also questions of how border adjustment tax, how it will be there, what exactly purpose it will serve, and Mr. Seetharaman explained that this will counter the taxes which are not covered by GST in a way. Border adjustment tax will take care of that, and road tape is a kind of similar thing. So that's all, Monica. I think I can sum up whatever we discussed. I think it was a beautiful session. Anything else you would
Alok,
like to?
sir, I really want to thank you for this beautifully explained summarization of each speaker, and also of the audience who asked the questions. It's quite pleasant to hear each and every point, and you have really recalled all the discussion which we had in last 2 hours. I would like to tell you viewers that the recorded version of this webinar is now available on YouTube channel. There are many people watching online right now, and people who like to take notes, they can take notes and revisit to our channel whenever they want to. We have all the this is our 8th webinar in 2.5 months, and all the webinars are there on YouTube on each subject which we have taken up. And with this, I would like to thank our esteemed panel for bearing with us for 2 hours, and our all delegates for staying with us. I'd like to thank Mr. V.R. Sharma, Managing Director of JSPL, Dr. Shubh Gautam, Chief Technical Architect, American Precoat, California, Mr. Sanjay Jayram, EVP Sales and Marketing, JSPL Steel Limited, Mr. Seetharaman, Advocate, Sarvada Legal, Mr. Alok, Sahay, Executive Director, Commercial Steel Authority of India Limited, and also the script writer of this webinar, Mr. Gajendra, Panwar, MD and CEO of Danilie India Limited, Mr. A.C.R. Das, former Industrial Advisor, Ministry of Steel. And before we close down, I would like to request everyone to please go to our YouTube channel, see the video, subscribe, and like and share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.